Yes. Woo! Yes. BT with Tales from a Gemini. And man, let's just get right to it. Thank you, Malik. You know, when I first got back into motorcycles, when I moved to Indy, and I went to MotoGP, I think it was in 2007. And I was just, just really just soaking in all this motorcycle knowledge and racing and everything. Came across this website, it was MotoGP Matters back then. And it was the most exclusive, but everything motorcycle, because I love motorcycle racing. And I immersed myself in that website. And somehow I came across the creator of that website. And he was so gracious and so nice to me. And we've been, I can honestly say, friends. And now I get a chance to interview what I call the man, Mr. David Emmett. How are you, Dave?
I am fine, but I'm not the man. I am a man, BT.
No, you are, man. You know, it's so, you have no idea. Like, this is, I've been doing this over a year now. And you've always been like, do I really want to talk to this guy? Because I know your level of intelligence. And I mean it from the bottom. Your level of intelligence is like, that's why if you notice in the paddock, when I see you, it's more of a hi and bye. How you been, Dave? And I just keep going because I know when I talk to you, your level is here. If it comes to like vocabulary and intelligence, you're in a gated community and I'm more like in public housing. And so I have nothing in common with you. And so I just keep it moving, man. I mean, I'm serious. I go, I have nothing for this guy. It'd be like fighting 1986 Mike Tyson. I'm like, I got nothing for this guy.
I think you underestimate yourself, my friend.
No, Dave.
I mean, no. Speaking of public housing, that's pretty much where I'm in the basement, squatting in someone's basement in the public housing because they won't let me in. So don't worry about it.
No, man, it's the truth, though, man, because, I mean, like I said, I read your tweets religiously and always have been because your extensive knowledge of motorcycles and it's not just motorcycle, it's just life in general. Put it this way. If you guys happen to go to his website, and I do this for everybody because I always say, it's not the subject. It's for the people who don't know about motorcycles and they want to take a peek in and see what is all this about. And I go, to just know you go to the website motomatters.com and you write under a synonym called Kropotkin, who was it was a 19th century Russian prince.
Yes, indeed, a Russian prince, anarchist, scientist, and all around. And his biography is just absolutely charming. He was a genuinely nice, open, interesting man, just interested in the world. And I think if you're not interested in the world, then what you're doing, there's so much to see, so much to learn.
And that's where I go, I can't talk to this guy because I looked that up and I go, how did you even come across that? How did radar?
Just following politics as a young man. Just I think I did a course on anarchism at one point as part of a philosophy course. I found it very interesting. Obviously, there's lots of politics which is interesting, and it was an interesting piece of philosophy. And I just enjoyed the way that he wrote. Basically, he started with because there's this. He was writing in the 19th century when we had Darwinism, and the thing was, it was all about sort of conflict and the survival of the fittest and all the rest of it. The survival of the fittest is about, being the best fit in your niche, in your environmental niche sort of thing. And so Kropotkin wrote about mutual aid. He wrote about how species work together, which is why there's, like everyone thinks of tigers and lions and stuff. And but actually there are more zebras than there are tigers or lions because the zebras work together, man, because they all live together. So there's this thing about how cooperation is strong as well. And to bring it back to racing, like we all idolize Marc Marquez, Valentino Rossi, all these riders who are just amazing, but without their team, they're nothing. If you're not in a right team, there are all of these great riders who, if they weren't in that team, they don't have the right people around them, then they're nowhere. So that's what I like also about racing. It's like it's an incredibly competitive environment, but you don't get anywhere unless you collaborate, unless you work together.
So that's beautiful. You bring it all back to racing. But I think being an open-minded person or whatever, and expanding your mind and gathering knowledge from other places that you wouldn't think, it does kind of fit into the realm of what you're doing. If you think about that, anything can apply, anything can. So I think that's
you can get your you get your inspiration from anywhere. You know, I mean, like it's literally as long as you can see parallels, as long as you can see you have to sort of see like, okay, they do this way elsewhere. You know, so how does that fit into my world? You know, how does it work in my world? Is that an idea which I could use in my life or whatever? It's or in the sport that I love. I mean, like for example, I actually learned a lot about. I looked to think a lot about MotoGP and the way that contracts work and all the rest of it by listening to podcasts about the NFL and about sort of that kind of like analytics approach to it, or that kind of like contract approach. So you see all of this stuff about silly season, who's going to go where, and everyone wants to go, why doesn't I don't know, you know, why doesn't Vinales go to why doesn't Van Vinales go to Aprilia, or Vinales go to Honda or whatever? And yeah, you sort of think, well, why would Honda want such a rider? Why would Ducati want such a rider? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to achieve? When you do that and sort of cut it down and start to think in terms of contracts, then it becomes sort of very different. But that's an inspiration which comes from listening to something else, you know?
Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I get dorky and I get really, really into the rabbit hole of motorcycle racing. But yeah, when you come outside of even inspiration from music, like, okay, so like, you study, you know, anarchist or whatever. And I hear you were sort of a punk growing up. Like you were in the punk rock.
Yeah, yes, very much.
Did you have the mohawk?
I did, yes, but I don't have the hair for it now. You know, I don't have enough hair to actually do anything. So, fortunately, I grew up in the times before digital cameras, so no photographs exist of me in digital form.
Was it a colored mohawk? Was it spiked?
No. It was just no. It was in fact, the other punks used to tell me off for it not being mohawky enough. So it was
not being mohawky enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you have the leathers on with the leather jacket and the fingerless gloves?
Didn't have the fingerless gloves. Didn't have the leather. I had sort of you know the ripped jeans and the ripped jackets, and generally just poor standards of dress. There were some clubs that. There were some nightclubs that they wouldn't let me into, and there were some clubs which they would let me into because I wasn't dressed tidily and neatly and all the rest of it. While they were kicking the people in the smart t-shirts and trainers out.
So who were your favorite groups back then? Who did you get into?
Stranglers, Damned, Crass, The Clash.
Yes. Favorite Clash song.
Favorite Clash
song. Who's your favorite Clash song?
There's so many good ones. I mean, like London's Burning is obviously just really, really good. But stuff like, you know, like Rudy Can't Fail always cheers me up.
What was about that culture that talked to you at that time in your life? Like, what was about it that just made you go, yes, this is me right now?
Because I was an angry young man.
Why were you angry? Why were you angry at the world?
I mean, because I was a teenager. You know, that's and just the imposition of any form of authority I found onerous and did not enjoy. So any chance to rebel. This is it. This is why I still have a lot of time for kids. You know, like teenagers. Teenagers should be angry and want to smash things, because that's very much, otherwise there is no change in the world unless it comes from people who want to change the world. Do you know what I mean? And the young people have got less to lose, more to gain by changing things. When you get older, it's easy to get stuck in a rut, to get comfortable. Do you know what I mean? I always think being comfortable is really, really dangerous.
Yes. Yes.
You know, yeah, you end up doing the same thing, and you find, you know, you can't adapt, and the world changes around you, and you find yourself sort of stuck. So I'm all for people. This is something I have, or not an argument. This is a disagreement or a difference of philosophical sort of perspective I have with my wife, because my wife hates sort of, you know, all this technological change and all the rest of it, and I just see it as inevitable, and ignore the bits that I don't like, and sort of try to go along with the bits that I can.
Well, I think it was Bono who said, "Good is the enemy of great." And I think and if you're like, okay, this is good enough, well, then that's going to be a detriment to you because you're not going to strive to get better. And the weird thing about my life is, you said you were an angry teenager. As a teenager, I was so happy. I mean, I was good. And so, but now I'm more angry now in life than I was as a teenager. And I feel like I'm regressing in that manner. Like I'm like more social issues are pissing me off now and make me angry and irate. Or I'm just a raging lunatic at home. Like I have to get out. Otherwise I feel like I'm gonna strangle somebody. I feel like I'm a walking time bomb. And I go, man, I should have had this when I was younger. I mean, like London Calling hits me harder now than it did when I first heard it. I mean, it's like, but man, now I just feel like on Euro, like if I hear Rage Against the Machine or any like that type, I just really want to put my fist through a wall. And like, I feel that, and what society's done to us and how everything's coming to light as far as society goes, like with the Tulsa Massacre and all this stuff that's coming out. And I grew up in Oklahoma and I'm just now finding it. And I had to go, and I'm from Oklahoma. They never said anything about that. There's people that never knew about this. So now I feel that rage now. Like I don't think I can go, get away with the mohawk and the leather jacket. but I feel
you might have to buy one to stick on.
I do that. Who knows? Maybe I'll get a hairpiece, try to fit in with the youngsters. But I feel that more angst now. So that's why I was asking, because I feel like my life is in reverse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's still the same. I still get very angry about certain social situations, social justice, social the way that society is organized. When you see certain systemic injustices, it's just frustrating. And it's also frustrating because you see them looking back. I mean, when I look back at myself as an angry teenager, I see lots of things where I think, God, that was stupid. But I also see things like, no, I was right about that. It's just I didn't understand it fully. But it's just as you get older, I mean, it's like I say, it's just about having an open mind and looking around at the world and trying to understand the world as it is, not as you would like it to be. Maybe try and make it as you would like it to be, but that's hard.
But that's what I've always done. I mean, that's what I've always respected about you and your reading. Like when it was really going down last summer with the riots and everything, I just remember like reading your tweets and man, like I knew that was coming from a good place. It wasn't just a bunch of, hey, look at me, I'm trying to act like I'm, this or whatever. I mean, I knew that came from a good place with you. And I've always respected about you is that just your humanity. And sometimes it sounds easy enough going, just be human, just have an open heart or show some compassion, some empathy for people. And some people, it's hard for them to do. And when I read your stuff, I was like, yes. I mean, you get it. I mean, I was like, why? How hard is it for some people to do that? But you did it. And that's why I think I've always just looked up to you because you were just more than just a journalist on motorcycles. And when you stepped out of that realm and you hit those people right between the nose, right on the nose, on the button, and you did because they say something like, just stick to motorcycles and what you know. Yeah. And that's when you hit the right button. And then you go, you know what? I don't need this. Blocked. That's when
exactly.
You don't take shit from nobody. You clap back. But your humanitarianism, that's what I love the most about you, Dave. I mean, your extensive knowledge is great, but man, just your heart and just being a basic good human being. Never saying that you're the best, never saying that you're right or wrong, but this is how I feel. And can't we just see it from their side of view, from their point of view, and just be human? And that's what I love about you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, I have had really difficult times in my life, and I've always felt, I suppose, especially since I sort of started working for myself, started writing for the website, like you're literally, you feel like you're teetering on the precipice all the time, like you're about to fall off, like you are sort of, 36 hours from homelessness all the time. And so that gives you a different perspective, you know what I mean? That gives you the perspective like, okay, you can't take it for granted. It's not everything this way. And you feel, when I see someone in really difficult situation, I feel empathy for them because I'm absolutely terrified that it could be me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, trust me, I know.
And I don't think I don't think I do enough to help others. That's because I'm a bit antisocial. But apart from that, it's just, it's really, I mean, I know what I can see what it's like. I can see how difficult it is, you know. And I also know, so for example, like with police shootings, I've been pulled over plenty of times by the police, and they've always been incredibly polite to me, and I've always been very polite to them, and I know they've been incredibly polite to them because I speak very nicely and I'm very white, and you know, they're not going to give me any trouble. But it's just, and also reading stories of, you know, like black kids growing up and being taught how to respond to the police to make sure that they're not being shot. Like, nobody had to do that to me. Yeah. Because like that was not something that was ever going to happen to me, you know. I mean, like the worst that was going to happen was I was going to get sort of nicked for shoplifting, and that was it. So that sort of horror, that, I mean, it's about empathy. And I think also, like, to take it back to racing, one of the things about empathy is you also try to understand. When I'm writing about a racer, I'm listening to what he's saying, and I'm trying to put myself in his situation, in their situation, trying to find out what they're feeling, what their motivations might be beyond, you know, like, obviously I want to win the race, but, you know, why are you in this situation? How did it happen? What do you want? What are you trying to achieve? Those sort of things. That comes from a place of empathy, and that place of empathy is much wider than just yeah, I mean, that doesn't just apply to racing. That applies to everything. That applies to everything in the world, you know, to everyone in the world. Everyone is living their lives, and they have their own motivations and all the rest of it. And what drives them, why they are the way they are, is what makes life so interesting.
It's the why, you know, it's the why.
Yeah. Why? Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, it's the only question that I'm interested in is like, why? Right. I'm literally about 3 years old. You know when toddlers get to a certain age, and we're going, why, mummy, why? Like, that was the phase I never grew out of, basically.
So what is your why? What is your why in life? What is your why?
My why? Well, I mean, you know, just to get to the end, really, just to sort of, I mean, my why, I just like learning things, that's all. So yes. Like when I see something, I want to puzzle something out. So why is that happening? And then sort of try and figure it out. And that gives you a certain amount of pleasure.
A certain amount of satisfaction, of course, you know.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why would I want a dirt bike at this age when, you know, I should be learning how to invest money, and I'm buying a 2-stroke dirt bike, and I'm trying to ride and not hit a tree in the woods. I mean, that's I don't know.
Yeah, but that's mental health, man. That is, you're looking after your mental health, and that's extremely important. I cannot emphasize in these difficult times how important it is. Like, literally, like last year, all through the pandemic, like, I took up cycling. I went cycling a lot. I rode my motorcycle a lot. I actually went, because the thing is, like, I've lived in Holland for, hang on, got to work it out, something like 30 something years. Anyway, a long time. And there's so much of the country, even though it's absolutely tiny. It's like, it's like 200 miles by 150 miles, maybe max. And there's so much of it I haven't seen. And like last year, I seized the opportunity just to go around while you're worrying about what's going to happen in the world, what's going to happen to racing, what's going to happen to me in my life. Am I going to be able to carry on doing this? Just pootling around these little country roads, exploring the country. It gives you a bit of perspective, and it's just really good for your mind. When I would used to ride motorcycles, I used to listen to like podcasts or music or whatever, and I just stopped listening to. So there's nothing. There's just you and the motorcycle and the environment, and it sort of, it's meditation. You know, it closes the world down. You can only do one thing.
Yes. I mean, I feel this. I mean, honestly, it's funny you say that. It's the same for me. Now, I'm more of a dork, and and so mentally, and I say this because once you become a certain age in life, you almost said it, where, I mean, it's not as fun as it used to be. So you got to find something to mentally, I always say, you got to mentally mind fuck your way through this. So whatever gets you through, do that. So me, mentally, I feel I am a MotoGP rider. So I go, what I got to do now is I got to stay in shape. I got to go to the gym, and I got to cycle. That's why I started cycling a lot. So I'm a MotoGP. So in the mornings, man, especially during the pandemic, I got my cycling game on, and there's nothing better than getting your mentals when you're in the country and you're, maybe going through a hard, you got a crosswind or a headwind, and you got to get through it. And it's so good to clear that head. I mean, the motorcycle, yeah, but also the cycling. It's just that two-wheel therapy gets you through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, but it's also like the reason I love like motorcycles, cycles, they're balance vehicles. So basically you have to do it with your whole body. Do you know what I mean? The thing about a car is you drive it with your hands and your feet, right? Like you press the power pedals, you move the steering wheel, and then you go from A to B. And it can, I mean, like, some people enjoy that. I can sort of see that. But for me, like being on a bicycle, being on a motorcycle, you do it for a start. You do it with your hips, I mean, like you ride a motorcycle through your hips. That's where you move from. So it's a full body experience, right? You to control everything, and that, to me, is what I find so satisfying. It's much more engaging. It's much more. It's like I always compare it like motorcycles and cars. It's like watching something on the TV and going to the theater. Do you know what I mean? You're actually engaged. You're actually involved. Yes. You're right in the middle of something.
Oh, trust me, I know. Being a performer, I mean, honestly. Yeah. Even if you go to the theater, and me, I'm biased for stand-up, is that you can see a comic. He can do the same act verbatim, but something is going to change every night. Even if he goes verbatim every night, there's going to be something different. Maybe his inflection, maybe whatever, the crowd reaction. And that's what's so beautiful. Even if a crowd doesn't talk, and that's what's so beautiful about the job that I do. You know what I mean? And it's about finding that passion. That passion was for stand-up. And that passion now, I mean, I love my job, but man, motorcycling is right there. Like, when did you get that passion for bikes to the point it's like, you know what? I think this is what I mean. It almost took over everything.
I mean, I've always one of the first things I was a motorcyclist. I mean, above my bed hung a picture of an RD350 LC. Not pop stars or girls or whatever. It was a motorbike, even though I also did have pop star posters as well. But above my bed was the motorbike. Like, I grew up around motorbikes. My father rode a motorbike. My uncle raced grass track, which is sort of a bit like flat track, but actually just in grass fields in the UK. It's sort of a Northern European sport. Yeah. And it just sort of, took me, it's just infected me since then. And then I sort of accidentally ended up writing about motorbikes because I wanted to write. I always wanted to write. I've always wanted to be a writer. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't think of anything to write. And so I wrote a MotoGP preview, and people enjoyed that. And so I did a few more. And then all of a sudden I felt, all right, this might be it. I might be able to make a living.
And what did you do before? What did you do beforehand? I mean, I always say I always say it's two parts of life. Before bikes is BB, and AB after bikes. So what did you do BB before bikes?
Lots of things. I was a programmer. I have this nasty habit of changing careers every few years. So I was a computer programmer. I worked on banking systems. I worked on content management systems. I was a technical editor. I was a translator, translating from Dutch to English, because obviously I've been living here for a long time and I speak fluent Dutch. I worked in restaurants, and before that I just did jobs. You would go to the employment agency and say, have you got any work? And they
and then you found the bikes.
And then I found the bikes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then I found I could afford the bikes.
Now, was that like an aha moment? Like when I caught Lorenzo by surprise were you there in the press conference when I thought I was, I made it to the press conference at Jerez when he was on the Ducati, and it was him, Marquez, and I forget who else. And I go, what was the aha moment? And Lorenzo goes, what is this aha moment? And Marquez start laughing, and the entire paddock, the entire press room start laughing. laugh and I go, oh shit. And I did, and I think you wrote something like, maybe it was you that said, if you're gonna ask a Spanish writer something, don't have one of like American catchphrase. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Fair game.
I don't think I would have written that, because I mean the thing about that's actually much more illustrative of Jorge Lorenzo, really, because he was really, really narrow. He was just totally focused. He grew up to be a motorcycle racer. Like his father wrote a book when he was about, I think, 11 or 12 or something, saying how to raise a world champion. It was called How to Raise a World Champion, which he then later did. But Lorenzo wasn't allowed to go play with other kids. He had to do his exercises around the kart track. His dad owned a kart track in, I think, Mallorca. And so he was doing these little figure of eights and stuff around the pylons and the sliding the front wheel practice and all these sort of things, just to learn how to be a better racer. And that's how he ended up being a world champion. But at that point in his life, all he knew about was riding motorcycles. So he wouldn't have heard of like an aha moment, because aha moment, like it's so, everyone's has it. I mean, like it exists in so many languages. It exists in Dutch. It exists in German. So it must exist in Spanish as well. It's just that this was not something he'd come across, because all he'd ever thought about was, he only had throttle moments and brake moments up until that moment.
I thought the greatest thing was Marc Marquez just busted out laughing when it happened, because Jorge looked, Mark thought it was a funny, and I go, okay, I'll take that. If I can make Marquez laugh, okay, good. You know what I mean? But Jorge, that's why Jorge looks. I mean, that's why he's kind of. I always say he's misunderstood, and I think he's got a good sense of humor, but he's just a little socially awkward. I mean, am I writing an assessment? Just a tad bit, but I think he's a good person. I just think he doesn't know, like, sometimes he doesn't know when the joke stops or when to, like, okay, you don't say anything else.
No, exactly. Again, that's part of his upbringing. He was kept away from other kids because he had to practice like I say, he literally had to practice. He wasn't allowed to play with his friends. He had to practice his training. He had to practice his front wheel slides and his figure of eights and all the rest of it. He learned his social skills from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Did he really?
Literally, yes, literally. That's how he. And in fact, if you know the book, there's a few things which he would do, which that he got from the book. Like calling you by your name, touching your arm when he speaks to you, all these sort of things. And it's quite remarkable. And it's also interesting because like now, it's almost like now that he's retired, his childhood, or his, not even his childhood, I suppose, like his adolescence begins, if you see what I mean. That period of life where you learn to be when you learn to socialize with other people, when you learn about boundaries, when you learn about how to interact with other people, and that's sort of what's happening to him now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have the picture of him, I think, with some girls, and he looked like a teenager. He's like, oh, girls. I mean, it's like you're a 5-time world champion, and it's like he's like a teenager seeing girls for the first time, and it's kind of cute in a way. It's like, wow, okay, Jorge, whatever, man. And he bought the Lambo and it's kind of funny and good for him. I know he rubbed Cal the wrong way, with what he was saying, but did you disagree with what he was saying about Cal though?
Remind me, what was he saying about Cal again? It was a long time ago. It was something about him not trying hard enough, or not being a champion.
Yeah, that and with Jack, he was like, you should be winning more instead of doing stoppies, and then Dakota jumped in, and it's like sometimes it's like people don't like that harshness, but if you look behind it, like, okay, was he really lying? Or maybe there's a way of saying it without saying it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. No, I mean, as you say, social skills. It's like he really lacks a certain level of social skills, and sometimes he just like butts in where he doesn't really belong, if you like. But also, I mean, like right now he's got a podcast on YouTube. He's talking about MotoGP, and it's quite popular. And then one way, I mean, being controversial, not being afraid to say things is a way of attracting attention. And I think that's that might also be sort of what's happening right here.
How many years have you been in the paddock reporting?
Let's see. Well, I went to my first race. My first race was the 2008 World Superbike Round at Portimao, the first time they went. And then 2009 was my first season actually attending racing. So that's 12 years.
Okay. So we came in basically about the same time. I mean, I never got the access till recently, but okay. So wow. Okay. So even in that little bit of time, what shocked you first when you first got into the paddock? What made you go, wow? Because when you say how the sausage is made, you go, oh my, I didn't realize this, or oh, this is, they're painting a different picture than what we see. So what shocked you first, or what made you go, huh?
I mean, well, the most interesting part of it for me is like you figure out that, it's just a bunch of people trying to get stuff done. And the human element, that's really what is so sort of interesting. Also remember, I read, I don't know if you've ever read it, there's a book by, I think, Douglas Coupland called Microserfs. And I read that before I got into programming. And like that book, you sort of like think, oh, these programmers, they're all really, really incredibly intelligent, really smart and all the rest of it. And then you actually go to work in software, the software industry, and it's just a bunch of dudes. And it's not all that amazing. And it was a little bit the same when I went into the paddock, where you realize like most of them, they're just a bunch of dudes. That everyone is trying to do their best. Yeah, they're just trying to do their job, but they're just human. They're not gods. They're just human. And the riders the same. They are not gods. They are just humans who have this godly level of motorcycle control, basically. Right. But as we've just seen with Maverick Vinales, your motorcycle control can be as good as you like, but what happens between the ears, that's the most important thing. And again, really, like as the longer I'm in this, the more interesting I find that human side of racing. Like how much of it happens between the ears, but how much of it is just is all in the rider's mind about how they cope with things. And it's worth watching if you've got like the MotoGP.com subscription, the video subscription.
Oh, I do.
It's so good to, go and watch the races from like on board, watch it from the helicopter shot. You see all of these different perspectives. And what you see is the way that the riders approach things differently. So you could see like, Maverick complains that he can't overtake, and then you watch the onboard from of him riding, and you see him taking the same line over and over and over again, and he can't get past someone. And then you watch it from Quartararo, and he'll try one line. Okay, that's not working. Then the next lap he'll try it a little bit differently, and he'll try it differently, and eventually he will get past. And it's just about sort of that creativity, that way of thinking, of anticipation. Mental flexibility, 100%. And that's why Marc Marquez is the best in the world right now, because he has more mental flexibility in racing terms than anyone else.
Here's what I think. When I read that, when you said mental flexibility, and I applied that. It's funny, we talked about it in the beginning. I applied that to what I do, and it sounds crazy, but here's what I think with Maverick. I think, first of all, I think a psychologist would be good for him, and then a sports psychologist stems from the childhood. Okay. Yeah. A sports psychologist and a psychologist work out I think there's something there with his dad, and I don't know about his mom, but you resolve the family issues. Okay. You resolve that. Now, and then you get to the sports part. And I really think, man, it sounds crazy, but I think he needs like an improv course, because it's like you said, when you said mental flexibility in improv, you learn, take a different, okay, whose line is anyway, whatever, try this different, or try in acting, okay, let's do it again. Hey, try it this way. finish line this way and pretending. So apply that to racing. And it's like you said, he's doing the same line every time. Damn it, it's not working. Well, how about you go on this side, dummy? Or how about, you know, when he thinks you're going to go on the inside, go on the outside, or wait, or attack him when he's not ready for it. I remember racing a karting track, and I did the same thing. I passed somebody when I didn't even think I was going to do it, but I made it, and we both were surprised. So I think an improv course and a sports psychologist would do him wonders, because for some reason, I feel a kinship with Maverick. I don't know why, but I think it's because he's a loner. And being a comic, you're a loner. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, we even though Marquez doesn't have an entourage, he has his assistant. Everybody has an assistant. But if you watch Maverick, you know, like he'll come to the press or whatever. He might have his trophy, he might have his helmet, and he's trying to juggle all his things, but nobody's holding it for him. He's got, somebody said that. He goes, if you notice, he's not like, they're like, hey, Maverick, can I hold it? He goes, no, I got it. And he's trying to do all this stuff where other guys, hey, Marquez has somebody to hold his helmet or hold his trophy while he adjusts himself or do whatever. But Maverick didn't have that. And I think that makes a difference.
No, but I mean, it does make a huge difference, but it's also, I mean, like, in the end, so much of this is about ambition, and different people are driven on by different things. Like I was saying to someone else, there's two kinds of races. There's the races with really solid, good environments, strong families, strong friend groups. And you see that, for example, Marc Marquez, Joan Mir, Valentino Rossi, like they have this really strong network around them, and that's what helps them focus on racing. And then you get the people who are fucked up. Then you get the Maverick Vinales and the Jorge Lorenzo and the Max Biaggi's, and the people whose intense, they're angry at the world, and they turn that anger, or well, it's usually not the world, it's usually, you know, something in their childhood or whatever, and they turn that anger into performance. They turn that anger into ambition, into, you know, trying to show the world, I'm going to show the world, man. I'm going to show the world what I can do. And like, yeah, it's, if you try to treat that, for a lot of them, if you try to treat that, they're afraid that it will take away their superpower. Do you know what I mean? Like, their superpower is this burning ambition inside them, and they're afraid of touching that. I mean, I don't know if there was a British comedian, very famous in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, called Tony Hancock. Is one of the comedic greats of that period, and they say that there is a moment. He was interviewed by I think Parkinson, one of the great TV interviewers, and basically the interviewer was just sitting down and asking about if you like, the mechanics of comedy, how it all works. And Hancock had never really thought about that before, and he was starting to explain it. And then that interview famously marks the end of his career, because he started to play around, he started to think about what he was doing. And so it changed. It like took away his magic, and he started to think, all right, you know, I'm naturally funny. He would stop learning his lines, for example. He would start just reading stuff off of cue cards, and it destroyed his career. It's actually a really, I mean, you as a comedian, I think you should look into it. It is absolutely fantastic to read about, because it's such an interesting case. And I think for a lot of writers, they're afraid as well of that sort of sports psychologist thing, that it will come too close. It'll come to a part where they don't want to go, because they're too focused on it. And the really strong, I mean, if you're already mentally strong, then you're prepared to use that vulnerability, if you like, to make progress by accepting that sort of help. But there's also the whole macho culture, you know, like you're not injured unless there's something quite clearly missing. You know, if you're perfectly healthy unless both arms have fallen off. You know, like, you know, even 1.5 arms, more than enough. You should be out there racing. And mental illness and you know, mental weakness, it's very much seen as a weakness, and I think that is a real that's a real problem for a lot of people.
But two things I think is that, one, you know, you could see it kind of coming, and it's almost there. It's that new breed coming in, starting with starting with Fabio. And it's weird to say this, but I mean, Marquez is kind of the new. That's the old. He's the new old.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So this new breed coming in.
This is
go ahead.
Yeah, this is exactly. I mean, this is what I found interesting because so you see these generations come in.
Right.
You see them, keep coming in. If you're in there long enough, you will see them come through all the time, and it happens all the time. So I'm probably on like generation 3 or something. That's, but the veterans who've been the people like Matt Oxley and whatever, they've seen 10 generations come through. But it is always fascinating to see, because there's a role you have to see. I mean, like I really started really focusing on racing when Valentino Rossi, with the rise of Valentino Rossi. Up until then, I was sort of like watching World Superbike mostly for Carl Fogarty, because that was much more interesting than watch Mick Doohan win every week. And then Valentino Rossi came along and like really shook it up. But then he was the young upstart. Do you know what I mean? He was this young upstart kicking all these old guys' asses, and then changing the sport. And then he gets a little bit older, and Danny Pedrosa, Jorge Lorenzo comes along, Casey Stoner comes along. They're the young kids. And then Marc Marquez comes along, who starts to kick their asses, and now we have Fabio Quartararo come along. But that's the thing. When you're a champion, when you are on top, king of the hill, top of the mountain, you're the guy with the target on his back. You're the guy that everyone has to try and beat, and so they study you very, very closely. They study what you do, and they try and imagine ways to beat you. I was talking to an ex-racer a while ago, and he was saying about Enea Bastianini. He was very impressed with what Bastianini was doing, because Bastianini was sliding the front the way that Marc Marquez was sliding the front.
Yes.
And so that's like, nobody used to slide the front, but then Casey Stoner started doing it sort of from time to time. And now Marc Marquez does it all of the time. He uses it as a way to actually like control the bike, to actually get the bike to turn, to actually use the corner speed and whatever. And now it's a commonplace. Now Enea Bastianini has, all these other riders are coming along. They're watching Marquez ride and think, all right, that's how you do it. So they do that, and then they try and add a layer on top of that, find the next level, because they have to add a layer on top to actually beat him.
That's theirs. And that's why with the new generation, we talked about the machoism, and I think it's always going to be there because just the nature of the sport. And so I think when it comes to that, Fabio got a sports psychologist. So I don't think so, and I don't think it was maybe a stick beforehand to be like, you got a sports psychologist, what kind of pussy are you? Where now it's like, hey man, this is going to help you, because I think everybody's strength is also can be their weakness. Where if you're strong mentally, well, then there's something that also it's gonna be a detriment to you in other areas of life. So he was so passionate, but when it didn't go right for him in Jerez that first year, we're and something happened to the bike, remember? And he broke down and he was just crying. And then he got that sports psychologist, and then you're seeing the benefits of that this year. And this new generation coming up, where it's okay to go, hey man, I'm not right mentally. Maybe I need this to calm me out and balance my life out, and maybe compartmentalize. And I think that's where the new generation comes in, where I think it's going to make it even better. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've been there also, and we've seen the changes, but I just have to believe that we're in a golden era of, you see what's happening with Pedro Acosta coming up. You got Raul Fernandez. I think Raul Fernandez has to move up because he don't want to race Pedro Acosta. I think he's like, you know what? I'm going to go to GP because I don't want no part of this little guy. You know what I mean? And then and no one's talking about Sergio Garcia, who's also, if it wasn't for Pedro Acosta, we'd be talking about Garcia. And then you got Adrian Fernandez. Once he learns how to ride and not want to fight his teammate, I think he's going to be up there. So we just keep upping the level, which I think is beautiful. And I asked people when I was interviewing the man, I said, you got any questions for the man? And one of the questions was, what's the single greatest racing performance you've ever witnessed?
Gosh, that's a really difficult question to answer, just because there's been so many.
Yes.
Honestly, like last week, Marc Marquez at the Saxon Ring, that was very impressive. I think the most impressive I saw was when Valentino Rossi was given, what was it, a 10-second penalty
in
or
Phillip
something?
Island.
In Phillip Island, 2003, I want to say, but it might be 2002. And then all of a sudden, he's going 3/4 of a second. He's lapping 3/4 of a second faster. That was just astonishing. That was genuinely astonishing. That whole ride was amazing. That he could step it up, and then you really saw what his level was. But like some of Marc Marquez's rides, if you think of his ride through the field at Valencia, when he stalled the bike on Motegi and just came through, that genuinely, those are moments you go, okay, this is something really special. This is something really really special. So like I say, the trouble is I've seen a lot of races, and so it's hard to remember them all. But there are so many. There are also just so many special moments. Do you know what I mean? Like the Stoner versus Rossi at Laguna Seca was fantastic as well.
Oh,
like I was a huge. There was also one year, I think it was probably 2011, for example, Casey Stoner on the Honda at Estoril, where he just destroyed everyone, completely destroyed them, was so much faster than them. That again was astonishing. But then, Rossi versus Stoner at Laguna Seca, it wasn't racing, it was a knife fight. It was genuinely, they were trying to, the Highlander moment. There can be only one. It was obvious that it was about so much more than just winning at Phillip Island. That was really amazing to watch.
It's the mental warfare that I love more than anything. I think, honestly, it's like when I had it. Oh, it was right on the precipice. Mental. I said mentally. I just had it. I also last week with Marquez at Assen, we went from 20th to 10th, and you could see he was still hurting. But that was a great ride. Also, what he did.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you, another great ride was also Remy Gardner in Germany as well, where he's leading Raul Fernandez, and he's just ratcheting up the pressure. You can see him just push, going a little bit faster, and you're basically like tempting the person behind you into a mistake. That takes an enormous. It takes the skill to be able to ride that fast, first of all. But secondly, it also takes the sang-froid, the cold-bloodedness to just ratchet up a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and see how far you can put someone under pressure.
It's beautiful.
I find that just I find it
mental
fascinating.
I think, and what I was trying to get back to, I finally remembered. Nothing demonstrates the mental warfare and, like you said, the coldness than watching Undaunted Dovey, and how Marquez was in his and how he tried to overcome that mental. And it was in a way hard to watch, because what Marquez had did to him, and he was trying to overcome it, and he and Gigi weren't getting along, and he wanted to beat Marquez so bad, and he was trying to come up with that mental way, and he just never really did it. I mean, he had moments like, in Austria, which was a great race, and how he did it. Everybody's had their moments against Marquez, but man, over a season, I mean, you can is the Johnny Ray of MotoGP in a way. You know what I mean? I mean, he will drive you to the point and goes, I can't beat him overseas. That's why when those guys get that one up on him, it's like their season. When I was there, when Renz outdid him in Silverstone, and you see the unseen, and they're in that car together to go to the podium, how Marquez is just, you could just see it. You could just see it and feel him seething inside, like this ain't gonna happen again. Ain't gonna be no rematch. I mean, that's the way, and that's so beautiful to watch, because they're all basically the same, but it's always what's between the ears. And man, I've always said this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, when it comes to mental toughness, as mentally strong athletes, I think it goes Michael Jordan, and then I put Marc Marquez in the top 3.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I would definitely say that. The other thing that you have to remember about this mental toughness is it's not even about winning. It's about not wanting to lose. They hate losing much more than they enjoy winning. Like the winning is, it's not about crossing the line first. It's the fact that you cross the line in front of a whole bunch of other people, and so losing is the worst possible thing that you can imagine. I was at you remember the flat track race they had in Barcelona, the Super Prestigia?
Yes.
The first year, Marc Marquez lost out to, I think, Brad Baker.
Yes.
And like on the podium, he was all like, Brad Baker was the best flat track racer in the world. Sure, he went over to Barcelona and he was sort of like in Marc Marquez's house, but Marc Marquez isn't a flat track racer. He does it just for fun. It's his hobby. Mm-hmm. He's a MotoGP racer, and yet Marc Marquez was expecting to win that. And I was told by someone who was in a garage or sort of downstairs, that after the race, after Marc had lost, he was sort of off in a little sort of hallway to the side, because it's in this great big stadium, and Marquez was absolutely livid. He was shouting and angry and all the rest of it because he'd lost. He found it was a bitter pill to swallow. But then the great thing about Marc Marquez is he comes out 2 minutes screaming and shouting, comes out and is extremely gracious. Brad did a brilliant job, all the rest of it, accepted it, and we're sort of moved on. And that again is the sign of a great athlete, is being able to leave your mistakes behind you. So I remember thinking this about watching Valentino Rossi, and it's the same with Marc Marquez. To an extent, now also, I think you see it with Fabio Quartararo as well. When they make a mistake, that mistake, you see other riders and they'll make a mistake and you'll see them carry that mistake for about half a lap, because they're having to compensate and they're trying to make up for the time that they're lost, and they're annoyed at themselves, so they have to get rid of it. But they, with people like Marc Marquez, the mistake happened.
Okay, is he still there? Oh, he froze. Is that on his end? Is that on his end?
Think about it. They don't let the doubt from that mistake you play in their minds.
It's funny with Marc. Like like you said, no one saw him get mad or angry and then come back and gather himself. The one thing I remember was he was playing with Fabio and Sepang, and Fabio basically was like, okay, you want to play? And Marquez got behind him, and then he high-sided. Remember that when he high-sided, and then he came. And the great thing about and I don't think Marquez knew the camera was there, because he has a great way of masking his pain, whatever. And he didn't know the camera was there, and he was walking back, and he just stopped and said, fuck, because he was hurt so bad. And you see him just go, fuck. And then he went back in the garage, and I felt guilty for laughing, but he was okay. But you could tell he was hurting, and he acted like he wasn't hurt, and he didn't see the camera, and he just said, fuck. And then he came back, of course, and did what he did. But man, I thought that was one of the greatest. And okay, so also, as I got to wrap, man, I hate this because I knew it was going to get this way, Dave, because you are just okay, greatest rider you've ever seen, not named Marquez, Rossi, or Stoner?
Oh God, that's that's a tough. Do you know what I might say? Jonathan Rea, just because of the way that he has dominated World Superbikes, and the measure of Jonathan Rea is what he's done, or what he did on the Honda. You didn't realize how bad the Honda Superbike was until he left and started cleaning up on the Kawasaki. I think that's truly the measure of a great rider, is when they win on bikes that other people can't do. But I suppose, you have to say Casey Stoner. If I'm not allowed to say Marc Marquez or Valentino Rossi, then you have to say Casey Stoner, just because of the things that he was doing were impossible. He was doing things which were not supposed to be possible on a motorcycle. And again, he was winning. He was cleaning up on that Ducati, and no one else could win on it. So I think that is the really the measure of the man.
How do you approach the Rossi situation? Because we know that, I think it's time. And how would you approach that?
Oh yeah.
But you have to be
delicate. It's Valentino Rossi. We don't. Yeah, no, but we don't get to approach it. Like it's Valentino Rossi. He gets to decide. That's the problem, because I hear all sorts of sort of tales out of the Petronas garage that they're not all that delighted with the situation, especially with the results. But the thing is, like I say, these people hate losing. They really hate losing, and I don't think he's enjoying racing anymore. And so I think because he's not enjoying racing anymore, he wants to leave. He can go off and race cars and win and enjoy that. He enjoys racing cars as well. So I think in the end, it's going to come down to he can go off, race cars, and enjoy that. It'll be interesting to see if he races a car in this summer break, because that might sort of flip his mind. But I think he knows in his mind, the way that he was talking, not just at the Sachsenring, but also at Assen, it sounded like the decision had really already been made.
Yeah, I was watching that pre-race presser, and it just looked like he was done. I mean, when they mentioned Max, Biaggi said something nice about him, and there was nothing in his eyes, nothing like a kind of, a sense of like, maybe ha ha or whatever. It was just a straight deadpan, like, okay, he's done. And the way he's responding to the questions, man, and that little pause, a pause will tell you everything in life almost. I mean, when it's an easy question, I go, then pauses told me everything I needed to know. They really, and it's hard to watch, but I mean, like I said, it's time sometimes, And also, hold on, man, ask you this question. I think you'll get this one. Do you remember wearing an inappropriate cap at Qatar years ago while accidentally photobombing one of the official Dorna riders during an interview?
Possibly. I don't remember it, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I have been known to. Before World Superbikes was owned by Dorna, I used to turn up to their race in the World Superbike T-shirt because I knew it used to annoy them. So yeah, it's just one of those things you like to do.
That was Dylan Gray who asked that question, man. I that's what I love about this show.
Right.
That's what I love about this show is I get to interview you guys, and Dylan, I got Dylan on here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of time for Dylan. It was also a delight to listen to Dylan. He was such a smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Dylan, Max. It was like, do I really want to talk to these guys? I mean, I want to feel like I'm not in that level, man. I mean, and so the great thing about it is having you guys chat. Like I have nobody here to chat MotoGP here with but like I talk about new generations. My producer, who's a great producer, is 19. He doesn't know who Pearl Jam is. Has no idea who Pearl Jam is. He's 19. He has Google. He doesn't know who Pearl Jam is. There is no but. Don't take it for him. There is no but. And it annoys me every time I come in.
It's a teaching. But take it as a teaching moment. I mean, it's an opportunity to introduce people to something.
But
new,
he doesn't want to learn.
Something they might enjoy.
He doesn't want to learn, Dave. He doesn't want to learn. I'm trying to teach the pros. And he goes, "Really, you like this?" And I go, "You know what? Go to bed." I just tell him to go to bed. I mean, just post my podcast and go to bed is what I tell him. Before I get okay, greatest racetrack on the GP circuit.
I mean, it's a toss-up between Phillip Island and Mugello. I mean, I have a soft spot for Aston, obviously, but I mean, I think I would have to say Phillip Island.
I love Phillip Island.
I mean, do you need an explanation? It's just it's what a motorcycle racetrack should be. It's very, very fast, very, very challenging, and very, very and glorious, and just the setting of it. And that's why Mugello is a close thing. Also, Mugello is just spectacular. They have everything which a motorcycle racetrack should be.
Oh, what track do you go? Ugh, I gotta go here. I think I know what you're gonna say. Because every man to a woman, to everybody I've talked to, does not like this place. But the racetrack, you go, ugh, I don't even want to go here.
Personally, I don't like. I'm not all that keen on the Red Bull Ring, in Austria. But I mean, the thing is, it's Valencia. But the trouble is with Valencia is it's the end of the season, and by the end of the season, like, you are pretty much done. You are pretty much cooked. just, you just don't want to be there. And then you go to Valencia, it's the last race, and the weather's a bit weird. And, you've got a test afterwards usually as well, sort of, like 2 days, used to be 3 days of testing afterwards. And it just went on forever. I mean, you would age about 15 years every time you went to the Valencia racetrack. But there is, again, the thing about Valencia is if you go up and stand up on the inside of, turn 13, the long left-hander, there is no better place to watch riders from than that hill and that corner. You're close and you see them. It's just amazing.
I mean, it's funny. Everybody, kind of talks bad about Valencia, but I really have grown to love it. It's always a special place to me. It's magic, man. Maybe because I was there when Marquez and Dovey, I mean, if Marquez crashed and Dovey, whatever, won, and he could have won the championship, and then. But Lorenzo mapping 8 came, he didn't get over, and then Lorenzo crashed and Dovey crashed, and I was right in front of Dovey's pit. I mean, God, it's just a special place for me. I love it. So
which one do you hate then?
Hate. I don't hate any of them. I mean, it's GP. There's not. But I thought you were going to say Le Mans because nobody.
Yeah. No. Le Mans is an absolute whole. It's more just like the fans are genuinely. It's like Mad Max. You do worry if you're around there after dark that you're going to end up on a pole being stripped naked and being barbecued. It has that feel to it. But the town itself, like I stayed in the town a few times now, and the town is charming. It's a lovely little French city, and well worth a visit. It's just I wouldn't necessarily go when there's a race on.
Oh, I knew I was going to get that out of you. Okay, since you're so open and you're not afraid, who's the one rider that you just adore? I mean, love talking to, and who's a pleasure to, who's always been open to you, and who's like you just go, you know what? If I could live 1,000 years, I would never want to talk to this person ever again.
I mean, I used to. The most interesting riders are the ones who can tell you stuff. Riders can't always tell you stuff. I mean, you feel an affection for them because of their sort of personality. I mean, someone like Joan Mir is a charming, lovely young man.
Yes, he is.
He can describe things to you, but it's not the same. Like Dovey could sometimes be churlish. But he could describe things to you in incredible detail. The same with Casey Stoner. It was fantastic because he could describe things to you in intense detail and pinpoint exactly why something was the way that it was. This is why it isn't working. This is why this won't work. And so, like, if you needed to understand something, those were the riders that you would ask. And right now, I mean, Miguel Oliveira is a bit like that, but Oliveira is sort of engaged in this sort of battle with the journalists. It's quite clear that he doesn't want to be there. He absolutely hates us. And so sometimes you get sort of into this little war, like little mental war of, like who's going to back down first. But apart from, I quite like him. And, riders I'm glad that I never have to speak to again, Andrea Iannone, because he hated us. He genuinely hated us, and he never had anything interesting to say. And he just he was a waste of time. Incredibly talented rider, and again, one of these riders where mentally there is, if he could get it together mentally, he would have been multiple world champion. But he didn't. He was, just too damaged and too disinterested.
That was the biggest waste of talent. And it almost makes me mad because, man, if there's anybody who went toe-to-toe with Marquez, it was him. I mean, he wasn't scared. And it was
too.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Marquez respected about him, and they would go bar to bar and bang. And I think that they had both these others respect. Like Marquez, like he knew it was going to be a 12-round fight. They both did, and they weren't afraid, man. It was like in the middle of the ring, pop, blow for blow. And Iannone came out on top sometimes, and Marquez came out on top sometimes. That was great racing. And when he had it dialed in, Iannone was a tough out. He was a tough out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. But I mean, you can't really call it a waste of talent because, you know, like that, the mental aspect of racing is where he fell down, and that's what he just didn't have. And so, like, he couldn't waste that talent because he didn't have it. He couldn't put it to good use. You know, he didn't have the tools to put it to good use over a 18, 19, 20 race season. And so, you know, that's why he, you know, that's why he could never actually be champion. And that's, I was not surprised to learn that he got caught, or you know, he was accused of and convicted of a doping offense.
Dave, one word answers before we get here. One word answers. One word. I don't want to. Okay. I don't want to essay. One word answers. The 2021 MotoGP champion will be
Fabio Quartararo. Oh, that's 2 words.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't say it was Fabio. The Moto 2 champion.
Remy Gardner. Yeah, easy. Or not easy, but he has the tools. He's doing it.
Moto 3.
And Moto 3 is easy. I mean, it's going to be Pedro Acosta because he's already in an unassailable position.
And the one question I want to ask you, one word answer. MotoGP means what to you?
Passion.
Oh,
I think passion.
I love it. I knew I'd get that out of you, Dave. Oh my God, Dave. Sure. I just wanted to get into deep into you. And I knew, you know, about the racing aspect, but it was the other part, and you didn't disappoint, which I knew you wouldn't. And thanks for taking it easy on me intellectually. And I really mean that. I was so afraid. I was like, oh man. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's no need to. I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk to you because you are an interesting person too. You know, you have a different perspective, and I think it's really interesting to have other perspectives than just a bunch of old white men.
Dave, you know, I appreciate you, and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, there is nothing but love for you, my friend. I can't wait to see you. Are you coming to Austin? Are you coming to Austin, Texas? Are you coming to? You gonna be at Coda?
Not sure. I would like to, but we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Dave, I hope so. And I hope you people from Tales from Gemini, I hope you enjoyed my chat with one of the greats. And I do. Thank you so much for your time, Dave. I appreciate you. Check out his website, motomatters.com. You can check out his articles on asphalt and rubber. The guy is just the greatest in my book, not only just a journalist, as a person, a humanitarian. I love the guy. Thank you guys for watching Tales from the Gemini. And like I said about this time, you know how I do. Peace.